Hi, I'm Old Norse Specialist Dr. Jackson Crawford. A little while ago I shared with you all kind of a teaser for the Grimfrost movie Fated, which aims to be the most accurate filmed portrayal of the Viking Age yet made. As part of their drive to make it as accurate as possible, Grimfrost enlisted me to translate the dialogue in the film into realistic late Viking Age Old Swedish. And now, for those of you who are interested in language history and such, I'm going to present to you what that dialogue is and some of my decisions as far as translating it and how that late Viking Age Old Swedish differs from the classical Old Norse or Old Icelandic of the 1200s that you otherwise learn in an Old Norse class or in my Old Norse lesson videos. So the first exchange, we have a character who says,
Mér þótt segja blóð.
Mér þótti segja blóð. I thought I saw blood, or it seemed to me I saw blood. Here we see the East Norse lack of lowering of long I to long E before R. In Old West Norse it would be mer. And we also see that the mediopassive ending has already become S instead of the SK we would expect in Old West Norse, thotisk, and Old West Norse, or Classical Old Norse. We also don't have the West Norse change of long E and A to J long A. In Old West Norse, C would be sjö rather than säga, but of course säga is what is ancestral to, say, modern Swedish say versus modern Western Norwegian sjö from Old West Norse sjö. And then another character asks,
Þér þótti segja blóð?
Þér þótti segja blóð, just reflecting the statement back as a question in the second person. A character says,
Átnar ill.
it's a bad sign, that auðnar ild. Now, auðna in Old Norse is a verb that means to foretoken, so it foretokens badly. Notice that here in the late Viking Age, I am still not assuming, based on some runic inscriptions, that Swedish has modernthagized. So in later Old Swedish, that au would become just a u, but I don't think that would have happened quite yet. A character asks, Mantu eftir þeirri orustu eistun mir hugus. So do you remember that battle where my kukunyet masculine were almost cut off? Now, this is a place where I had to make a decision relative to what is sort of natural in Old Norse in terms of speaking. People don't say something almost happened. They say what did happen, although it fell short of being as bad as it could have been. So he says that his kukunyat masculine were almost cut off. That would be natural English, but in Old Norse it'd be more likely to say they got cut, right? Not cut off, he's not going that far, but they got cut. So that's what it says here. Do you remember that battle where, and of course you use the personal pronoun, the dative, rather than the possessive personal pronoun for body parts, so mir instead of mean, where these body parts were cut, hugu. So hugu being the third person plural past, and then the s added to sort of pacifies it, which is more common after all in Old East Norse than in Old West Norse. Then he says, Thar vissi jag at jag så mitt blóð. Now, here I have carried through the sound change that happens, or the sort of grammatical analogization that happens earlier in East Norse than West Norse, where the third person singular of the past, the I, gets analogized into the first person singular pretty early. So in classical Old Icelandic, this would be thar vissa instead of vissi for I knew. Also, of course, the classic Old West versus Old East Norse isogloss is the word I, it's an I, me. And Old East Norse, you got jak instead of ek. And of course, that jak is ancestral to modern Swedish ja, modern Danish jeg. And also, you're more likely to get the the possessive pronominal adjective my, mitt, before the thing possessed than after it in East Norse. And Old West Norse you'd expect blowth mitt. Far fram och far in I. Go forth and go into or through. Verb estimader thu for varit. Here we got two umlaut things that are not happening in East Norse. In Old West Norse you'd expect fär varit, so be the best man you can be. But you don't have I umlaut in the present singular of strong verbs in Old East Norse, so for instead of fär, and varit emerges pretty early as the past participle in Old East Norse as opposed to verit.
Jag kommer aldrig bäste maten. Jag kommer en värste.
Jag am aldrig bästi mader, I am never the best man. Jag am in värsti, I am always the worst.
Detta kan vara en sista kostring. Vi tappar en timme.
Detta kommer till att vara en sista kostren. Wir tappum tima. So again, we got some umlaut stuff that's different in East versus West Norse. In Old West Norse, you'd expect theta kummer with I umlaut in the present singular of a strong verb, but in Old East Norse you don't get that, so it's kolmer, much like modern Swedish, Danish, Eastern Norwegian today. And you got tapum instead of topum. In Old East Norse, typically U umlaut doesn't happen when the U is still there, as it is in the first person plural of verbs. Now, when you have a U that drops out, sometimes the U umlaut will actually remain on the syllable where it's dropped. So like hond, hand, instead of hand, coming from an earlier handu. But where the U is retained, typically the U umlaut is lost. Also, minor thing is sisti last, that would be sitsti in Old West Norse or classical Old Icelandic, but the Z, which spells the sounds TS, typically just becomes S pretty early already in Old East Norse. Jag vet wherer thu ert, jag och skip thu vill få it. I know who you are, I have a ship, or I have ships, you want to get one?
Kom igen. Det öppnar att vi härjam samman.
Och men, that öppnar att wir herjum samman. And men, it is foretokened, it is fated that we raid together. And where herjar längre, but who raids any longer? Thess thurfum wir, och that ought thu. We need to, and you ought to. So I hope that's a reasonably interesting and cohesive presentation of this dialogue in the movie. Go check it out if you haven't yet. It's over on Grimfrost's YouTube channel. I can't post it on mine because of music licensing rules on YouTube. There's some music by Wardruna in the movie, as you'd sort of expect in a production like this. All right, so I hope, again, that that's somewhat interesting or informative for you. Hope that helps make the movie a little bit more enjoyable, knowing what people are saying exactly in Old Norse and some of my thought process and how I translated that dialogue into not just Old Norse and of the sagas and Eddas, but realistic late Viking Age, specifically Old Swedish. For now, for beautiful Wyoming, I'm wishing you all the best.